This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Delhi Services Bill. The participants are K.V. Prasad, political analyst, and Ashwini Srivastava, journalist.
The Union Government on Tuesday tabled a contentious Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Bill 2023 in the Lok Sabha, seeking to replace an ordinance related to the control of services in the national capital. According to the bill, all transfer and postings of senior officers in the Delhi government will be done by a 3-member committee headed by the Delhi Chief Minister. K.V. Prasad sir, what are some of the key features of this bill that has become a rallying point between the Delhi government and the central government?
The government of India, when it moved the bill in Lok Sabha today, it very clearly states in the statement of objective reasons. It says that Delhi, being the capital of India, is administered by the President directly under Article 239A of the Constitution. And thereby it goes on to explain as to why it is important for the Union government in particular to work and make sure that the administrative and the governance of NCT is of the highest possible standards. So as you said, of course, we all know that there was a reference to the Supreme Court and there was a decision taken by the Honorable Supreme Court in this regard. And subsequently, the ordinance was issued by the Government of India in May. And now that is the order. The bill which was moved in Lok Sabha today is to replace that ordinance. And of course, it comes with a couple of changes from what the original bill contained. We can speak on that as we go along. But end of the day, it looks like basically what the Government of India says in the bill is that Delhi is a place where, you have foreign diplomatic missions, international constitutional workings, Supreme Court, high dignitaries of other nations come to Delhi to pay official visits. So it's a national capital and thereby it wants to have a say in the transfer and postings, as you said, of the officers who work with the Delhi government but primarily belong to the All India Services.
And questions are also being raised on its timing as well. Why this bill now? And both Delhi Chief Minister and LG have been at loggerheads over different issues, especially the ones related to the transfer and posting of civil servants. Anything on the timing? Why this bill is important now?
See, if you look at the larger context, of course, we all know that this timing was probably because in the May 2nd week we had the Supreme Court judgment and then May 19th was an ordinance. I think as India is preparing and Delhi, the capital of the country, is preparing to host the G20, I think the government wants to make sure that every arrangement is perfect and India plays a perfect host. And probably that is one reason when you look at the time of bringing the services and rates so that there is no confusion, if one were to say so, in any of the orders that the central government wants to implement and make sure that Delhi plays a perfect host to the world leaders when they come to Delhi. That probably is one way of looking at it. But in the larger context, if you look at it, as you mentioned, there has been a tug of war, a verbal duel between the Delhi Chief Minister, who's also gone around the country trying to rally support against the bill that has come up in the Lok Sabha. It's also a political battle between an Aam Aadmi Party government in Delhi and the central government, of course, of a different dispensation. It's a mix of these which I look at it.
Right. Also, Delhi Chief Minister along with Aam Aadmi Party ruled Punjab state's Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann had visited most non-BJP ruled states and met opposition leaders seeking their support to oppose this legislation. How do you see this step?
Well, I think it is natural for the Aam Aadmi Party to try and garner support. It's a political party. It has governments in two places, Delhi being a union territory. In other words, it's a statehood but doesn't have full powers of a state. But Punjab is a full-fledged state. And having won just about a year, Punjab government, Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann and as you mentioned, Arvind Kejriwal, the Chief Minister of Delhi, are trying to get political support. And some of it looks like manifested in what we saw in Bangalore conclave of opposition leaders. If you just go back 1 month before the Bangalore conclave happened, Mr. Kejriwal was at Patna when the first meeting took place. But there, the issue of his seeking support took a back seat, primarily because of the priorities of other political parties were totally different. Subsequently, with the Congress coming on board, so to say, just on the eve of the monsoon session, offering its support to stand with the Aam Aadmi Party when the bill comes up in Parliament, changed the mood. And then, let us not forget, in less than a year's time, the country will be headed for Lok Sabha elections. So, political battle lines are being drawn. And Aam Aadmi Party and this ordinance bill will probably be one test of such battle formations if I were to look at in terms of political terms.
The bill seeks to create an authority that would be National Capital Civil Services Authority for transfer and posting of senior officers in the Delhi government. And if I can read the statement of object and reasons of the bill, it very clearly says that a permanent authority that would be the National Capital Civil Services Authority will be headed by the Chief Minister of Delhi along with the Chief Secretary, Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi, and the Principal Secretary, Home, the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi. This would be the body that would look after the transfer and posting, but the final say would rest with the LG. So, in a way, elected government of Delhi will not have any say in transfer and posting of bureaucrats who would eventually be working for the people of Delhi.
Well, that is the whole core issue that the Aam Aadmi Party is trying to convey, that an elected government in Delhi may not have control over the bureaucrats who will be posted or attached to the government of Delhi. That being the case, they are saying, but of course the central government, as you said, the statement of object reasons makes it very amply clear. In fact, we also heard the Parliamentary Affairs Minister when he spoke outside Parliament, when he said that it follows in lines of many other countries where the national capital is located in a particular area or in a particular state. So there are different rules that govern that particular administrative structure differently. So it is modeled after all such things. But then that is where the battle is all about. And I think what we are going to look at is this particular provision is what is the core of the issue. And as we mentioned, the Civil Service Authority, it's a 3-member body. The Chief Minister is part of it and 2 bureaucrats. So that's where the change would happen. And the provisions of the bill, it clearly says the quorum for this will be 2, meaning which, suppose if the Chief Minister were not present, the other 2 members of the authority will be a valid quorum. So that this has taken into account a possible political move, if at all such a thing is envisaged. Even otherwise, it's a voting. So in a 3-member body, a voting would take place whichever way the vote goes, and finally it goes up for the review at the LG's level, who obviously holds the office there. So I think all these works into it. The tussle is just about begin. There is an ordinance in place, and once the bill replaces the ordinance, we might see a fresh round of political tug of war.
And there are claims and counterclaims in favor and against this. Home Minister Amit Shah on Tuesday said that the constitution allows Parliament to make laws for Delhi, and remarks made against it are political with no basis. Similarly, the AAP said that the bill to replace the Delhi Services Ordinance, the most undemocratic piece of paper ever tabled in Parliament. How do you see such an exchange of political charges?
Well, we know, as we've been talking right from the beginning of the program, this has become a contentious bill, largely because of the different political parties hold the governance structure in different places. And the particular constitutional provision, as you mentioned, is the 239A of the Constitution, which provides for the special provisions in respect of the Union Territory of Delhi. So obviously, that is a clause that has been invoked in the very statement of object and reasons you also mentioned. But that's where the political battle is all about, the Delhi Act. Now remember, the numbers in Lok Sabha are very clear. The BJP-led NDA enjoys a very clear majority, so there's no issue. The whole political battle that Aam Aadmi Party is trying to make into is to try and see if it can stall the bill from being passed in Rajya Sabha. So it's a political battle that Aam Aadmi Party is trying to get.
Interestingly, the bill removes a provision in the ordinance that previously prevented the Delhi Assembly from making laws concerning state public services and State Public Service Commission. Section 3A, which was added through an ordinance, said that the Delhi Assembly won't have the power to make laws related to services. This has now been taken out of the bill. Instead, the bill now concentrates on Article 239AA, which you also mentioned, which empowers the centre to establish this new authority, that is, the National Capital Civil Services Authority. How do you see this removal of this key clause?
Well, I think that could be a particular anomaly that must have crept into it, because the Delhi Assembly primarily, as we know, has limited powers, and especially the State Public Service Commission and the State Public Service falls primarily under the Delhi government, because it's not just the All India services who are working in Delhi. There are a lot of Delhi state government employees who are employed directly by the government of Delhi, now known as the NCT of Delhi. There, all the policies and programs and all the rules and regulations that are formulated are in place, are primarily made by the Legislative Assembly of Delhi. So I think that probably has been kind of corrects that particular thing, what you mentioned, the removal of the provision of 3A and concentration of 239A, which actually looks at the All India services. Because even in the original Act, the Indian Police Service was not part of it. I think this probably corrects that anomaly which might have crept in at the time of the ordinance, and also in the light of whatever has discussions that must have taken place in the last few months.
The bill is also said to dilute provisions under Section 45D, which deals with appointing chairperson and members of various authorities, boards, commissions and statutory bodies in Delhi. It removes the requirement for orders or directions of ministers regarding proposals or matters to be referred to the central government before the LG and the Chief Minister. Now the bill introduces a new provision stating that the Lieutenant Governor will now make appointments to boards and commissions formed by the Delhi government based on a list of names recommended by the new National Capital Civil Services Authority. The list will also include the Delhi Chief Minister's recommendations. How do you see this?
Well, once again, if we all know that many of these boards and corporations and commissions have been places occupied by the people who belong to the political party which has the government of the day. This again would have in the larger context they feel because there's a statutory body which has control over certain segments or certain matter of governance. Again, that commission and that statutory authority or various body would have an element. So I think this is again a battle that's what Mr. Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party in government in Delhi is trying to rally around, that it has no power to appoint anybody to the statutory bodies or various authorities or the boards and commissions. So I guess this forms in the same pattern it is trying to portray and build a perception around.
Right. And how do you see the numbers in the parliament for its successful passage?
As I just mentioned, even in the Rajya Sabha, the numbers do add up. I would describe it as the government had a working majority, and the opposition's best attempt would to try and bolster the numbers to an extent where it can seem to challenge the bill from coming close to the brink of defeat. But that's not going to happen clearly because we already hear, what we heard is probably a political party may abstain, which means the numbers come down in terms of voting percentages. That the majority mark changes the number of people present in voting, number one. Number two, some regional parties are willing to support the government on this bill. So that changes the complexion to bringing more numbers to the already higher numbers with the BJP-led NDA. So I think the government will have to work, of course, make sure that all the promises that leaders have made, their members do turn up and come up and vote. On the other side also, opposition also has its own share of problems because some members are seniors, one or two we heard are not keeping good health. So whether they are able to come to the house to come and vote or they come, all those are, of course, when we know when the voting takes place, we have some time. But as it appears at this point of time, there's very little obstruction in the way for this bill to replace the ordinance and become act.
Will this also give opportunity for the opposition leaders to prove their alliance, show of unity or their strength in the house?
Yes, certainly, Ashwini. The opposition would like to try and use this occasion or rather demonstrate its purpose, sense of purpose or coming together on an issue on which they all promise to stand together with Aam Aadmi Party. So even though the numbers may not add up enough to stall the progression of the bill in terms of becoming a law, it will kind of give you a reality check as to who is standing with you on the issue on which they all decided to work together. So that will be a demonstration of that.
How do you see the opposition contention, especially the Delhi government contention that it dilutes the power of the elected government?
Well, I think that has been, as I said, principal argument which has been arguing from day one. Probably that is it took to the Supreme Court, challenged it there. It had a decision, the Delhi government decision won, and immediately there was some action, if you remember. But I think this is a long-drawn discussion and debate that will begin now. And once the bill becomes an act, obviously there will be a fresh round of discussion and the debate probably will start afresh.
So now the bill has been introduced and it would be interesting to see the outcome of the debate on it. Thank you, K.V. Prasad sir, for talking to us and explaining in detail different matters related to this important bill.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Delhi Services Bill. The participants were K.V. Prasad, political analyst, and Ashwini Srivastava, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on Air Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsdtalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.